Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the King Obed Podcast, where we explore personal growth, innovation, and impactful stories from extraordinary individuals. Today's guest's name resonates with leadership and change across Africa. She is Queen Mojakisane. She is a visionary leader and the Sustainable Futures Coordinator at Tangelic. She's done so well and she's committed to making sure that youth, leadership, women are empowered and also make sure that every community across the African continent has access to clean energy. This is my guest for today's episode. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the King Obed Podcast. Queen.
Thank you so much. I am grateful to be here and I'm grateful to talk about impact and the work that we're doing at Tangelic.
Right. Yeah, so I'm curious, how did it start? Why did you start to chart this path of helping people, making sure that communities across Africa get access to clean energy?
Okay, thank you. So my journey of impact started quite a bit back. Because I obviously am from Africa and there are a lot of marginalized groups or communities in Africa, a lot of less privileged groups in Africa. And I happen to come from such a community where, crime rate was skyrocketing, poverty was imminent, and only a few people were able to make it out of poverty. And there were like just the concept of poverty led to so many other psychosocial and social problems, in Africa. I then started my pioneering initiatives aimed at combating these problems, crime, education inadequacies, mental health issues amongst different sets of people, especially the young people. So originally, I am from Lesotho. Lesotho is a country inside South Africa. And I started computer literacy programs. I started mentorship sessions for different sets of people, high school boys in juvenile prisons. So that's where my leadership and impact journey started. And a year back, I had opportunity to meet different leaders all over the African continent. I won the Future Africa Leaders Award in Nigeria. And that led me to be interested in expanding my work, the scope of my work, and impacting more communities. So when I moved to South Africa, I continued doing the same, carried out projects in Ghana with other young leaders. And that is how my interest in partnering with different people, different organizations, then led me to Thangelic. So Tangelic is a nonprofit organization that seeks to bridge the gap or that seeks to address energy poverty and climate change across Africa. So that was how it started. That was how I came to be the Sustainable Futures Coordinator.
Okay, so you are trying to more or less give access to deprived communities which do not have access to energy. So what basically do you do when you go into these communities? If you say you are trying to eradicate this poverty energy from these communities, what do you actually do in those communities?
Okay, so the organization is committed to community empowerment, gender equity, and sustainable development. So we stand to do this in different ways. Our first project is called the Sunrise Spectrum Initiative. And this initiative is where we're empowering communities with clean energy access through solar home microgrids, clean cookstoves, and community solar microgrids. And then we will now have another phase of our work and another project called the Ghana Clean Energy Entrepreneurship Incubator. So it's important for me to elaborate that our work, the beneficiaries of our work will be in Ghana to begin with. So that's why the next project will be the Ghana Clean Energy Entrepreneurship Incubator. So through the Ghana Clean Energy Entrepreneurship Incubator, we aim to foster the next generation of clean energy leaders by providing mentorship and seed funding to young entrepreneurs.
Okay, so you've been to countries, to communities, and so far, how many countries do you have a record of the number of countries that you've impacted or you've visited where you are expanding this clean energy to?
Okay, so far we are our impact is going to be mainly in Ghana. We're wrapping up the ideation phase of these projects. So that is how we're planning to do it. So we're yet to implement these projects, but we've done technical assessment of these communities. We've visited the communities, met the local people, met the local leaders, local organizations that we can liaise with. And right now we're looking at Tamale in Ghana. So that is where we're gonna take the implementation stage or the implementation steps in. Yes, please.
Okay. So how do you identify these communities or countries, and what are the specifications that will make you go into a specific locality? For instance, you mentioned Tamale. What is so unique or peculiar about Tamale that you need to address?
Okay, so we chose to start a project in Ghana, specifically the rural community, because there is a huge energy poverty therein. And specifically, like I said, our project, the Sunrise Spectrum Initiative, seeks to bridge this gap or meet this need through solar home systems and clean cookstoves. So we chose Ghana specifically because the legislation or the laws of Ghana really support clean energy initiatives. We also chose it because geographically it would be sustainable to actually carry out, especially for the first time carrying out this project in Ghana. We know that it is near the equator, and near the equator there are more sunlight hours. So it's very sustainable to use solar energy there. So that was how we chose it. And mainly because there are many organizations as well that we can work with. So that was how the idea now came about.
Okay, so in Ghana, it's only Tamale that you are, or there are other cities or other towns or rural areas that you find yourself in?
So far, because we're yet to implement our project, we just want to start there first and then potentially move across other places and other countries as well, and on the African continent and the global south in general.
Okay. So when all is said and done, what do you intend to achieve as Tangelic? What do you intend to achieve in these localities or rural areas or communities? What's the ultimate goal?
Okay, so essentially, we want to achieve sustainable development in these communities. That is why we're not only donating the clean cook stoves or the community solar microgrids, we're going to go a step further to train young people in these communities on entrepreneurship, connecting them with potential investors, and essentially providing training, mentorship, and seed funding to them. Not only that, we're looking at another initiative that we call the Pan-African Climate Exchange. This is where we'll be driving continent-wide climate action through knowledge sharing, collaboration, innovative financing mechanisms. So we not only want to bridge the energy gap by just donation of these cook stoves. But what we also want to do as well is to raise the bar when it comes to the entrepreneurial activity or the economic activity going on in these communities, connect them with other global
Yeah.
communities, see a sustainable change in these communities. That is what we aim to achieve.
Okay. So your target is the whole community or a section within the community. How do you pilot when you get to a community? How do you pilot them? How do you able to see that okay, this group of people need this kind of solution to their problems?
Okay. So essentially, yes, we are targeting the entire community, but we want to really emphasize gender equity in all our initiatives. So we want to
Okay.
specifically empower women and young people through this project. For example, in rural communities, especially on the African continent, the genders
Yeah.
that are responsible for um, collecting firewood, since that's what happens in the rural communities when you're cooking, collecting
Yeah.
firewood, cooking, it's mainly women who do this. And when we're
Yeah.
now giving them an alternative power source, that not only alleviates the burden of collecting firewood, but also improves their health because the respiratory illnesses that come as a result of using firewood and other harmful alternatives or ways to get energy. So we're also empowering them by, alleviating them of these small burdens. And then we're also seeking to ensure that in our mentorship session or programs, entrepreneurial programs that we're going to have, there's a huge representation of the female gender as well. And also in the implementation of our project as well, representation of females and young people. So in a sense, because when you empower one person, obviously you're empowering their families and their communities. We are empowering the
Yeah.
entire community, but we want to specifically ensure that there's gender equity in all our projects.
Oh, okay, okay, that is fair enough. So when you get to these communities, when you meet the opinion leaders, you meet the leaders who matters in these communities. Do you give out monies or do you give up equipment? What do you actually give? You keep mentioning of stove, electric stove, and those kind of things. What actually do you give out in order to champion this cause?
We're looking at donating the stoves themselves. We're not looking at donating cash donations. So far
Yeah.
we are looking at the objects that solve the problem. The objects
Mhm.
themselves. We're also, even during the training, we're not looking at specifically giving out cash donations so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. How is the reception when you get to a community, specific community where you intend to help them? How is the reception like from the opinion leaders to the last person in the society or in the community? How do they receive you guys?
To be honest, the reception so far has been great. We've been not only able to meet leaders, but we've also received a warm reception from the organizations, the nonprofit
Mhm.
organizations in the same, with the same mission and goals as us in Ghana. It has
Yeah.
been wonderful. We are working with Green for Change Ghana. And, it's just been wonderful seeing how receptive they are and how much um, improvement or development they also want in their respective communities. So far, we've not experienced, challenges that we could say they could restrict the implementation of our projects.
Okay. So talking about other organizations, is there a collaborative, effort or collaboration across where you get other organization, non-profit organizations also coming on board to join in the agenda which you are championing?
Yes, it would be impossible for us to actually work alone for such a cause like this. So,
Yeah.
because this is also not for profit, we'll also rely on support from different organizations. So, like I've already said, we're working with different organizations such as Green for Change Ghana, There are also
Mhm.
other big organizations, agencies of the United Nations that have expressed interest in working with us further on. We are so open to exploring different partnerships with prospective organizations, and that's why
Yeah.
that's why I'm even here having this conversation to say we're open for collaboration. If your organization has the same mission and goals as ours, our door is always open to see how together we can drive sustainable development in these communities.
Wow. Wow. That's a great job. So if I want to get you into my community, if I say my community is facing a challenge, is having a problem with respect to, these energy assets, how do I get to you guys and how do I get you into my community? Is it that you come by yourself into the communities, or there has to be somebody who is mediating or in an intermediary between you and the community?
Okay, so far what we have done is that we have went into the communities, carried out technical assessment of what need to be done. So in
Okay.
the case that maybe someone else or a prospective collaborator wants us to do the same, it will just depend on the kind of problem we're trying to solve. Also
So
the
yeah.
facilities that are available in that place. So I would say it would vary from place to place, but we're always open to seeing how both parties can mutually work together seamlessly to achieve these goals.
Yeah, okay, okay, okay. So initially, you mentioned that when you get into the communities, the reception is great, but I know
Yes.
there will still be challenges. Yeah. So what has some of the challenges that you've encountered for the number of years that you've been champion, and how many years have you done this?
Okay, so Tangelic is a relatively new organization. We've been working for I think 6 months now. So it
For six
really
months.
hasn't been a long time. But during the 6 months that we've been working, we've been working very hard and we've come a long way. Like I've already said, we even have a lot of partners on ground. So I would say
Yeah.
that for the short time that we've been working, it's really been great progress. But I don't know. May you please repeat the other part of your question?
So I'm asking, what are some of the challenges? Initially, you mentioned that when you get into the communities, their reception is great, and I'm asking that what are some of the challenges? Regardless, I know there will still be challenges. What are some of the challenges or difficulties that you face in trying to deliver these key community-driven solutions to the people?
Okay. So some of the challenges will obviously include logistics costs, also some communication barriers that may be in a form of
Yeah.
language or connectivity to these communities. Not everybody has internet access, which is the problem that we're trying to face. And
Mhm.
Tangelic right now, like I did mention, is US registered organization, meaning that a lot of
Yeah.
the members in leadership are far away from the continent. So we need that access, that constant communication. So it can be a bit tricky to establish that, but we do try to, uh, do the best that we can to ensure effective communication. But those are the minor challenges that we've come across. They haven't been too big that they could prevent our implementation, but that is just a bit of what we've faced.
Okay. So tell us, so far, what has been some of your success stories and let's say your achievements within these 6 months, which you establish yourself and you are trying to get access to some of these communities? Share with us some of the things you've gone through these communities, the success stories that you've heard from people through you trying to give back to the society.
I think a success story would be I always want to say that, collaboration and finding people that are receptive of what we're trying to do, that would be
Yeah.
a success story in itself. I specifically want to give a shout out to Green for Change Ghana. It's doing a lot of wonderful work on ground to ensure that the projects that we're trying to achieve um, are going well. So we haven't actually started the implementation phase, or we haven't actually donated the solar equipment that I've been talking about. But
Yeah.
when we hear about how such a community is eagerly awaiting these solutions, that gives us a sense of what we're about to achieve, because we have videos on our YouTube channel where these members of the communities are talking about how without electricity, they cannot do what other people in other areas can do, and they're eagerly awaiting these power sources.
Okay, so you've been enjoying these collaborations from other organizations and then having a warm reception from community members and everywhere that you go. So you are looking ahead to establishing yourselves across Africa as you seek to, bring this clean energy to almost all deprived communities. Do you think this is achievable, and how many years do you think you can use to achieve this?
Well, I think in 5 years' time, it is safe for
Mhm.
me to say that we can scale our impact to different countries in the global south, specifically in Africa.
Yeah.
Because looking at the progress so
All
far
right.
that we've done in just the few months that we've been established, I would say that it is achievable. Yes, it is achievable, and the sky is the limit to what we can achieve.
Great, 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 great. So as one person you've also established Youth on the Rise. You are empowering youths in Lesotho, South Africa, across the African continent, and you are doing a lot. What gave rise to Youth on the Rise?
Okay, so essentially, like I said in the beginning, the fact that I am
Mhm.
from a community where I understand the issues, the psychosocial issues that young people in different groups go through. That was what
Yeah.
gave rise to the organization to consolidate the projects that I had mentioned that I was doing, the computer literacy programs, the mentorship programs, the soccer tournaments that I was doing. So that's what gave rise to it. I essentially wanted to raise awareness about the importance of empowering young people, because it is young people who shape the future. And also, as a young person myself, particularly through education, I have been empowered because of the projects that I was doing. For instance, I was able to get a MasterCard Foundation scholarship, and that just
Wow.
changed my life. And I was able to now see how empowering just one person can change the course of their
Mhm.
lives, and
Yeah.
it is worth getting close to young people, listening to their stories, and helping them achieve their dreams in different ways. So when I go into these communities, for instance, in efforts to combat crime, I rolled out a mentorship program for young boys across high schools in my city. And then I then scaled the
Mhm.
projects to young boys in juvenile prisons. So after a year of the mentorship training sessions that we had in the juvenile prison, I went to school and came back. So when I came back, we're trying to see after the young boys are released from the juvenile prison, what happens to them? Where do they go? Is there any improvement in their life?
Yeah.
Have they left the life
Mhm.
of crime? So we're trying to make this as sustainable as possible. And when I came back, I met with one of them, and lo and behold, he was now in school, and he was talking about how his life has changed since we came to talk with them, trying to impact them, how he's no longer into substance abuse, crime, and all the other things. He's gone back to school. It was great seeing such an impact story. We even did a TV show with him where he was encouraging other young people to,
Mhm.
lead responsible, crime-free lives, and sharing his story basically. So that alone, like I said, makes you see why it's important to pioneer such initiatives, do such things, so that Africa as a whole becomes better, and the communities that we live in become better as well.
Okay. For how long have you been doing this? Empowering youth, giving, more power to women and all this. How long have you been engaging in this stuff?
Okay, so I am currently 22 years old, and I started when I was
Okay.
19. So that would be in 2021,
Okay.
2022. Yes,
Like 3 years, roughly
yes,
3 years now.
roughly 3 or 4 years now.
So is it only in Lesotho or South Africa, or you are trying to bring it across all Africa and then bring a larger group of African youth together?
So,
What is the focus?
so in 2023, I won the Future Africa Leaders Award in Nigeria. And
Mhm.
this allowed me to meet different leaders of the African continent, former presidents, members of
Yeah.
parliament, so on and so forth. With that, I was not the only one who won that award. There were other young change makers as well, 10 of them. So I now met
Mhm.
one from the country of Ghana, and we set out to collaborate. Last September, we organized and we were the major sponsor of an event in the central region of Ghana called the um, Ghana Central Expo. So we
Oh.
raised about 10,000 Ghana cedis to sponsor this event where there was entrepreneurship. It was an entrepreneurship exchange kind of event where the local entrepreneurs
Mhm.
were given an opportunity to display the products, where they could meet people who may want to invest in their businesses, potential customers. And it was a huge event, about 100 canopies. We worked together with the local chiefs, the different agencies of the government, and it was a big project. So I've scaled out my work, collaborated with other young change makers, as you can tell, on the continent, and also in South Africa where I'm studying. I always engage in these give back projects. I was selected for one such project where we worked together with students from the University of Florida, from Notre Dame University, another University of Colorado, where they came to Cape Town. We worked together to provide consultancy services to local communities in the townships
Yeah.
of the Western Cape. So essentially, even outside the scope of Youth on the Rise, I try wherever I am to engage and make change where I am. So that is essentially what I've been able to do so far.
Wow, I'm really impressed, and I think at your age, you are doing so well at age 22 to be combining your education, trying to improve the lives of other people, and giving back to the larger society. I think it's something that is laudable and must be applauded. So kudos to you and your team and whoever is supporting you in everything that you are doing. But with all your encounters with youth, whether in Lesotho, South Africa, across the globe, as you've told, what do you think are some of the challenges, are the problems of today's youth?
I would say that different communities have different needs. For instance,
Okay.
coming from a poverty-stricken area, poverty led to a lot of other things: crime, substance abuse,
Mm-hmm.
mental
Yeah.
health, especially amongst the young men. That was where I could see, because they're under pressure to provide, protect, do this, different socioeconomic issues going on. So I would say the lack of access to resources is one huge barrier
Mm-hmm.
holding back young people. Many young people in my country, for instance, I'm talking about many different resources, simple as education.
Yeah.
The standard of education in many African countries is not good. For example, me, having had the opportunity to maybe say study in Cape Town, I was able, like I said, to now meet people from across the world, work with people from the United States. But that's not the case for every university on the African continent. The resources are quite uh, they're not there actually. There are no resources. Everything, the corruption that's taking place is actually holding us back so much. So, simple things, I was talking about how a simple commodity like Wi-Fi, for instance, is not available in most homes on the African continent. Um, and
Yes.
once that is taken away, you get to see why it's important to have these resources or these facilities in place. And some things, maybe to people in the diaspora, may be abandoned, but simple resources are actually the lack of resources is actually the one that is really holding us back as young people. Lack of resources, lack of information. Um, that is what I would say is the main problem facing the African youth.
Okay, so as a change maker, how can we change the situation in Africa?
Taking small steps to bridge the gap, especially as young people, when we take these steps, because a lot of the older people can meet, make conferences, come up with strategies on how to solve our problems. But the truth is, they don't
Yeah.
really understand or know the extent to which what we're facing is affecting us. So once we take these daily steps to actually be the ones at the forefront advocating for our needs, then we get to have opportunities to work with organizations like I'm working with Tangelic right now to introduce a youth
Mhm.
centric voice to these solutions. I am pretty sure I am amongst the youngest people on the team, for instance, and I'm able to come from a place of what young people may want and how this could be implemented based on a young person's perspective in these communities. So the more of when more young people become change makers, the more we're actually able to achieve the goals that we want.
Okay, so there should be more inclusion of people who are yearning for change so that collectively we can all come together to provide or to create the future we want as Africans.
Yes, definitely. I believe that young people should be given spaces to express themselves, not only to express, but should also be given access to resources that will allow them to implement the change or to implement whatever it is that they feel or they propose to be the solutions to the problems that we're facing. When we talk about access to funding, there should be funding of more youth-led projects, youth-led innovation,
Mhm.
ventures, entrepreneurial ventures done by young people. I believe there's still a huge gap in that because there are no jobs so far. Like I've checked, there are so few jobs. Jobs want X
Yeah.
years of experience, but when we um, come together to actually put money into enterprises by the young people, then that is one of the ways that we can actually create sustainable change on the on the continent.
Wow. Wow. So we need more change makers like yourself. We need, collective hands to come on board. But there are other people or other people of different opinion who also think that when you give these young men or young people the chance, they bottle it away, they waste it, they don't utilize it. What do you also say to that?
I think this is why it's important. This is why I said education. For me personally, education, um, mentorship has been a very important aspect in the projects that I do. This is why even in
Yeah.
Thangelic, we have, this mentorship and training so that you change the mindset of the person, or if not necessarily change, but you prune and groom the mindset of a young person. You train them, you expose them to what can be when they utilize the resources effectively. Let them see what other people have achieved. And that will change how they see things as a whole. That would make them want to be better, providing, access to different training programs will actually assist in people not using funds effectively. So I would say that is something that we can use to actually combat that problem. But I don't think that all or everybody would want to not be successful. So when we use the right steps to actually ensure that we're creating a sustainable pathway that these funds can be used, then it will work out.
Okay. So we should make a conscious effort to work on the mindset of these people, give them mentorship training, coach them, guide them to actually what the way is, or this is the path. This is the way. When you follow, you're going to, be successful at this thing.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. What is the biggest platform that you've mounted in all of this traveling across the globe, meeting world leaders, change leaders, or change makers, where that you got to that platform and you made your case and you realized that yes, you were satisfied, you've made this case to people, and you think that something positive is going to come out of it?
Definitely, I think the Ghana Central Expo was one of the biggest platforms that we created as a collective. In terms of the amount of impact that we're able to do was amazing. Not only were we able to carry out sponsorship of the entrepreneurs themselves, but we're also able to carry out free health screenings, collaborating with university students of the University of Cape Coast. And we're able to give free health screenings to a lot of people. We're able to introduce an app called the Haslo app, where these entrepreneurs can showcase the products online and connect with prospective buyers. So for me, that was one of the biggest platforms, apart from, of course, winning the Future Africa Leaders Award, which, gave me, it was accompanied by a cash prize of 10,000 US dollars. So I would say,
Wow.
arguably, that was also one of the biggest achievements, being able to meet with the immediate former president of Malawi, Her Excellency Joyce Banda, being able to meet with the former president of Nigeria, President Olusegun, and other change makers and other leaders on the African continent, from South Sudan, from Liberia, almost every African country. But it was really incredible seeing what other young people are doing in their communities. There were people doing even more than what I was doing. And I was surprised because most of them are engineering students, medical students. So it's just amazing how young people, despite the commitment that their studies require, how much they're also dedicated to advancing the African continent.
Wow. So this all can be classified as an act of volunteerism, and you think that it's rewarding. So more youth should get into this space to make sure that we champion the change that we want for Africa.
Yes, definitely. And to maybe a young person who wants to know how to go about it, I would say that taking the small daily steps, like you've said, volunteering, it goes a long way. You get to meet relevant people in these spaces that would be better than actually doing a paid job. Some of the opportunities that I've gotten have opened my mind to more things that I can achieve. So I would say just taking those small daily steps, being overcoming fear, and pioneering what you can pioneer, meeting the needs in your communities will really go a long way to improving you as a person.
Okay. So as a change maker, what is the ideal African that you want?
I want an Africa where we don't have to cry about leadership. because, to be honest, the corruption in leadership of many African countries has held us back so much. And,
Yes.
there are times when I was younger, there was a time when I actually thought that maybe the leaders in my country actually hated me, because you'd find out that only their families are the ones that are getting the
Thriving.
opportunities. And I was
Yes.
wondering, I was looking at leadership of other countries. They seemed to be putting their countries first. They seemed willing to die for the success of their countries. But when I was looking at many African countries, they were willing to let the people die, let the countries die, and then
Die.
them be the ones that
Yes.
are, you know. So honestly, I would just love, a leadership um, framework that I can be proud of. I don't know if it's possible to say no corruption, but less corruption, corruption-free societies, if possible. But
It's possible.
essentially, the leadership really has a long way to go, because for some people that are not industrious as I am, that are not as outgoing as I am, who knows what opportunities are able to come to them. And
Yeah.
it's really sad to see what's going on. But that is the Africa that I want to see: a fixed leadership, corruption free, sustainable Africa.
Okay. Do you think that the citizens are more of a problem than the leaders?
No.
Because there are people who argue that it's not just about the leadership, it's also the citizens or the followers of these leaders who make these leaders become corrupt in one way or the other. What's your view on that?
I agree, but I think at the end of the day, it's up to the leaders. When we look at the policies being implemented by the leader of Burkina Faso, for instance, we see that he is really trying to change the status quo. But I cannot mention specific activities, but he is
Yeah.
trying so much to remove the the excess, what we can see from the impact
Yeah.
of colonialism, let me put it like that. And it's not, I don't think that everybody agrees with him. I think he is actually going against all odds to do what he's doing. And
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say, yes, maybe the citizens can impact the choices that they make, but at the end of the day, it's up to the leader. Um, what happens, up to the leadership of the country, what happens with that country. So I think he has shown us that despite the norms that have been happening for decades, things can change when the leadership changes. So I would say it's more on the leadership side.
Great. Things can change when the leadership changes. So more of our problem that we are facing here in Africa is largely due to leadership, and we keep recycling these leaders, and still we did not get the kind of change that we want. Yes, as a group of people, we keep complaining. It's as if there is no hope. The ordinary young African has lost hope in everything, and so there is more of now people trying to migrate to other countries to seek for greener pastures, and it is happening, and we are losing all of our human resources to all because of these bad leadership. And I think that's the things some of you change makers are doing, championing, trying to give back to the society, enhancing people, empowering people, will go a long way to change the narrative of the ordinary African. And with time, we believe that we can make it work, we can make it possible, and we'll get there and then the future we want. So when all is said and done, how do you want to be remembered? As queen who came to do what? Wait, you as a change maker, as sustainable futures coordinator at Tangelic. When all is said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone who identified the need in their communities and dedicated their life to meeting those needs. So for me, it's as simple as that.
Wow, 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 wow. Yes. And I hope that definitely with the path at your age, what you have done, what you are doing, and then the future, I believe that you are going to do something which is great. Yes. So I wish you all the best in your endeavors and everything. And what are your final words to my listeners, to my audience? How can we connect if in case we want to collaborate with you, with Tangelic, Youth on the Rise, and all that you do? How can we connect?
Okay, thank you. So the best way to connect is to go to www.tangeliclife.org and to
Mm-hmm.
find out more about the work that Tangelic does and
Yeah.
find out how to donate. There's information there of how to donate to the organization. Also,
Mm-hmm.
for email inquiries, you can email support@tangeliclife.org, and then you
Yeah.
can get in touch with us for you to know more about what we're doing. And on a personal level, I am available at katleho.mojakisane@tangeliclife.org. I also have my LinkedIn, Katleho Mojakisane, and that is how we can connect. And I would really urge your listeners to support the work that we're doing at Thangelic.
Wow. 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 Definitely, we will be on board. We will support because this is something which is very great and we will need to support it. Yes. So thank you so much for coming on board and sharing your ideas, giving us a background of what you've been doing and then the future for Tangelic, Youth and the Rise, and your personal views on the African continent and how you wish that the continent will come out of its crisis and then move into a pedestal where we are all proud of. So thank you very much, Queen, for coming on the King Obed podcast. So viewers, listeners, this is another episode, or this was another episode with Queen Moja, who is the Sustainable Futures Coordinator and the founder of Youth on the Rise. We've dealt with so many things from giving back to the society in terms of clean energy, how she founded Youth on the Rise, doing so well as a change maker on the African continent and on the globe as well. So take time, listen to this episode, share with friends. Let's continue to empower ourselves as youth, as young adults, as we seek to create the future we want.